again, our focus is for you, the donor, to tell us what you'd like to accomplish, and then for us to figure out a legally sound, ethically sound way of saying yes to you. The whole goal of the organization is to say yes, not no. Who would have thought that our foundation would have an interest in buying a pro soccer team in Norway?
Yeah.
But when the dream was explained to us, we said, well, we can create a structure that makes that possible. And it's been loads of fun. I think it's going to be very, very fruitful, very productive.
Welcome to Ordinary Discussions Podcast. Today we have an unbelievable guest, Doug Kiesewetter. We're at his house here in Colorado. What a treat. I'm excited to introduce Doug. He's a serial entrepreneur, a philanthropist, a man whose impact extends far beyond just business. Doug is the co-founder and chairman of WaterStone Donor Advised Fund, or WaterStone
Foundation,
mm-hmm. which has donor advised funds, which we'll talk about, which is a prominent nonprofit foundation focused on charitable giving through donor advised funds. But that's just the beginning of Doug's story. Over the years, Doug has founded dozens, probably more than that, right? Mm-hmm. If we go international, it's way more than that.
Right.
Of businesses across a variety of industries, from energy, infrastructure to nonprofit work. He's also been deeply involved in multiple organizational boards. He still is, contributing his expertise to countless initiatives and causes. Doug's list of accolades and accomplishment is so extensive, it would take far too much time to mention them here. And that is the truth. It's not me just saying that. But trust me when I say he's a very impressive man, and we are very fortunate to have him on the podcast today. All right, let's do this. Doug, we're back again.
Good.
Another podcast on giving. So, man, I so enjoyed that last podcast we did. Good. If you guys didn't listen to it, make sure you go back. It just kind of talking about challenges around finances. What is ours? What is the Lord's? It's all His, by the way. And just challenging around giving. It was so awesome. So I'm really looking forward to this podcast. And this podcast, we're going to speak to Doug about creative ways to give. All too often we make giving so boring, and even within the donor advised fund, which we'll talk about, a lot of donor advised funds make it boring. It's like you can give, but your fund can only invest in certain things, and it takes a lot of the entrepreneurship creativity out of the giving process. But Doug, through the WaterStone Foundation, has really allowed entrepreneurs or people that want to give creatively to do that. And so, man, you're a real blessing to me in that. And so I just wanted to introduce that to our audience. And since we talked about giving in the last episode, I thought maybe we could talk about creative giving in this one. And so why don't you start out by telling us what WaterStone Foundation is, kind of how you founded it and what it does?
Well, I started my adult life as a consultant advisor to prosperous Christians to help them minimize tax and maximize giving to the kingdom. And pretty quickly as we got into that, we had people who approached us and said, I've got a dream of doing this or that or another thing in ministry, and I can't really find anybody who can accommodate my dream. And so we ultimately, about 4 years into our consulting practice, formed WaterStone as a vehicle to allow people to be creative, to use their best skills to their giving program, as opposed to just writing a check to some impersonal organization and feeling like they've done their duty. So just one of the prime needs that we met early on, why we formed the foundation. One of the largest donors in Christendom over the last 50 years is a businessman in Dallas. And he was a brand new believer, just learning how to give when we met him, and wanted to do more, and was being extraordinarily generous. But a few months into our relationship with him, he came to us, it was a January morning, and he said, I'm really frustrated. In December, my comptroller in my company told me I had X dollars to give away before year end for tax purposes. And he said, I was really busy with year end at the business. I was busy with my family celebrating Christmas, and I just finally wrote 2 large checks and was done with it. But he said the first week of January, 5 people have approached me with really worthwhile ministry opportunities, and I had no cash.
Yeah.
And I had to tell them, come back later in the year. And they said, well, we really need the help now. And I said, well, I'm sorry, I just don't have the capacity. So what the first thing we did with WaterStone was to use it as a stockpile where you could give money during the tax year to accomplish the desired tax result, but distribute it to charity over the upcoming 12 months or 24 months or 5 years or whatever, so that we disconnected the tax benefit from the timing issue. And this has been invaluable to me. I always try to keep several $1,000s in my donor advised fund so that when somebody comes across my path who really needs immediate help, I can say, yes, I have the ability to help you now, instead of saying, oh, sorry, I wish you'd talked to me 30 days ago. And so that was one of the things that we accomplished. And we have, I would say, a significant portion of our donors use the foundation for that very purpose, that they want to stockpile money so that they're able to respond immediately to needs. So that was one thing. We had a lot of donors who had their own businesses, and they would periodically have a liquidity event. They were in the real estate business, and they'd be ready to sell a big piece of real estate. It was a difficulty to weave charitable giving into what they're doing. First of all, they're negotiating a deal, and that was taking all their attention and energy. Secondly, they frankly didn't want their church or the charities that they loved in their financial affairs. They didn't want, most significant donors are supporting 5 or 10 or 20 different organizations. If they told one organization that they were about to give $1 million away, that organization would want all the $1 million, and they'd be under pressure from that organization. With WaterStone, we were able to go right into the middle of their deal-making period. They could make one transaction, give 10% or 20% or 50% of the transaction away before it happened, and then divvy it up to the charities that the Lord laid on their heart over time. And they no longer had to disclose their financial affairs to somebody who wanted to get a donation from them. So we were kind of a neutral party. So there's kind of a common thread here, Jeremy. We view ourselves as a donor service organization. Most charities are donee service. They're out to take care of their own needs. Our focus is the other direction. We want to help donors do the very best job and the most satisfying job of using their assets for the kingdom. And it makes a real difference when your focus is to serve the donor instead of the end charity. This has extended to the ability to do a lot of creative giving through the years. You mentioned in the last podcast that my hobby for much of the last 30 or 40 years has been to go to poor places of the world and try to help people learn how to identify opportunities that are within their reach, build businesses around them so that they can create profits to care for their families and to be able to do things in their community like medical clinics and schools and things that need to happen there. So WaterStone has permitted me the freedom to go and fund these economic development activities in 50 plus countries over these years. So I can put money deductively into the foundation, and then as these opportunities arise, fund the startups. And so we've done hand carpentry tools in Africa, and a cashew plantation in Zambia, and handcrafts in Guatemala, and We've done coin-operated laundries in Croatia and beekeeping in Kazakhstan. And, but it's been so much fun for me to do something that's consistent with the way God designed me as a startup entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Use my talents and my money to promote things that are going to be of long-term benefit to communities.
Yeah.
If you're looking for kind of zany things that we're able to do, there's one that's kind of currently on the plate. But I've been doing ministry projects in Southern Africa for many, many years. And I've had a partner there who's a phenomenal businessman, and we've done ministry projects in 6 or 7 different countries and tremendous fruitfulness. But he has a 45-year-old son who's likewise an entrepreneur. And son Michael, one of the things he's done is to start a Christian soccer academy in Cape Town, South Africa, developing ghetto kids, they have a dormitory situation. They come and live with them. They educate them. They lead them to Christ. They coach them in soccer, develop their soccer skills, but also giving them life opportunities. So over the last 15 years, 100 kids have gotten full soccer scholarships to the U.S. 73 kids have gotten pro soccer scholarships out of this program. And all the kids who've come through it have become believers and have gone out into life with skills that are going to make them leaders and godly influences. So, but they've been concerned that the best of their soccer players were going off to Europe on soccer contracts and having a hard time adjusting. First time in their life having independence, first time in their life having money. They've had several of them kind of fail at a character and a personal level in that setting. So Michael approached me, and net result is that WaterStone has put together a group of people to buy a professional soccer team in Norway, in Oslo, which we're going to use as a stage 2 discipleship program for our best soccer players, where it's a AAA minor league team, basically, that the big leagues are France and Germany and Italy and UK and Spain. So Norway's a step below that. We can bring our 18-year-old athletes in there, and we can mentor them in the early stages of their pro career, get them exposure where ultimately their contract will be bought by one of the major league teams. And so we give them a 2 or 3 year transition into to make them more successful in what they're doing. The contracts being bought by the major leagues bring very large transfer fees, multi-million-dollar transfer fees, which go to the club in Norway. And the club in Norway has committed to reinvest that money in more soccer academies around Africa. So we're going to be able to take inner city kids in 4 or 5 countries and give them a totally new opportunity in life. So, who would have thought that our foundation would have an interest in buying a pro soccer team in Norway? But when the dream was explained to us, we said, well, we can create a structure that makes that possible. And it's been loads of fun. I think it's going to be very, very fruitful, very productive.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So I would just say the Donor Advised Fund, I tried a private foundation myself early on. It's a lot more work. It's a lot more expensive. There's many more rules and regs. And I went recently back to a Donor Advised Fund. And one of the things I really love about it, Doug, is just in general, any donor advised fund, is it allows me to give within the tax code today. So take advantage of the tax benefit, but give over time, because I may not have, I don't think anybody with the right heart is giving just to maximize their tax burden, but you'd be crazy not to take advantage of it, excuse me, in the process. So it allows you to take advantage of that process, but like you said, meet the need that you see when it becomes a need versus just writing a check to make it. And I think a lot of people do that. And I think a lot of people aren't don't think very sophisticated in their giving in that way.
So WaterStone is doing several things that I think are pretty unique in this regard. Again, our focus is making this as positive an experience for the donor as possible. So for medium-sized donations and larger, the donor is able to totally direct investment policy. A lot of donors, when they give the money, would like to be able to invest it, and sometimes they have unusual things they'd like to invest in, and we're able to accommodate that. Now, of course, we have to review it to make sure that it would pass muster with the IRS.
Yeah.
But within that boundary, we're able to allow the donor. So some of our donors are real estate entrepreneurs and want to invest in real estate projects. Some people have a variety of other things that they know would be profitable that are non-conventional, and we're able to accommodate that. We also are trying to be good stewards of their money in the sense that we've made our administrative process very, very efficient. We have about 20% as many employees per $1 million that we manage as any other Christian foundation. So the overhead, the cost of sustaining this is very, very low.
Yeah.
And we don't, it offends me as a donor to think of a lot of my donor dollars going into administrative overhead.
I agree.
And so we're keeping it down to a bare minimum. We're at this point managing in excess of $2 billion a year with a staff under 20.
Wow.
Which is extraordinary. Competitors are literally 5 to 6 times as many employees. So that makes a difference. And we want to come alongside our donors and help them get the most mileage out of their gifts. Most donors don't realize that it's hugely advantageous to give appreciated assets rather than giving cash to the foundation. Giving, so you've got shares of NVIDIA.
Yeah, give us some examples of appreciated assets. What are some examples?
Shares of NVIDIA that you bought at $10,000 and they're suddenly worth $100,000. Yeah. If you give them the shares rather than cash, you avoid the capital gains tax on that $90,000 gain, and you get the tax deduction of the $100,000 gift. If you sell them, you've got a $90,000 gain. You'd pay almost $20,000 of capital gains tax. And then if you were wanting to give $100,000 away, you can do it, but you've only got $80,000 in your pocket after tax.
Yeah.
So you get much more mileage out of your gift if you give something before the sale. We do a lot of transactions where people are giving little pieces of a closely held business, or they're giving fractional interests in a piece of real estate. They give 5% of a piece of real estate or 10% of a piece of real estate. We can do that, and it unlocks assets that otherwise people have kind of viewed as illiquid and not able to do this. This may sound really strange, but I've managed my tax liabilities since I was in my mid-20s by giving little pieces of these companies that I start each year, so that 50% of my income is always sheltered from income tax. And I may hold that company for 5 years, 10 years, and there would be no way for me to get any value out of that stock in the short run. Mm-hmm. But if I give the shares, I can get a tax benefit from those shares each year, reduce my income tax. So I've never actually had to pay income tax at anything more than 50% of the highest rate, no matter how much money I made, because I've been using my companies as a means of giving. So WaterStones would like to come alongside donors and say, do you have some assets that other than cash that might be susceptible of gift, and can we help you with that? In the current circumstance, there are many, many, many crypto millionaires. It would be ideal to unlock some of that value by giving some of the crypto to charity.
Yeah.
We can hold it or we can sell it depending on what the donor wants. Most charities won't hold non-liquid assets, but we're there for the donor's benefit, not for our own.
Yeah.
So we're more than willing to hold non-liquid assets. We get some pretty goofy donations. We have a whole group of Midwestern farmers who give us crops in the field every year. They'll give us 50 acres of corn or 10 acres of sugar beets. And it works well for them tax-wise. And we're happy to receive them. In that instance, obviously, you sell it immediately. But I don't think there's any other foundation that has made a practice of being able to receive agricultural crops as a gift.
Yeah.
And so, again, our focus is for you, the donor, to tell us what you'd like to accomplish, and then for us to figure out a legally sound, ethically sound way of saying yes to you. The whole goal of the organization is to say yes, not no. And frankly, most law firms and accounting firms, their purpose is to tell you no, to give you boundaries that make it impossible to do what you're dreaming of doing.
Yeah.
And we've funded a great number of kind of creative charitable projects that people have an idea and would like to do something. They've gone on a missions trip to a certain place and heard about a need and want to respond to it. So we're doing a lot of kind of direct charity in out-of-the-way places around the world. When I'd been doing this for several decades, one friend came to me and said, "There are poor people in America. Why aren't you doing anything for them?" And they said, why not the inner city? So I started to develop business projects to help inner city people become more economically self-sustaining. So I started auto mechanic shops in the worst neighborhoods in New Orleans, and butcher shops and bakeries, and a variety of things that provide good, wholesome employment and a chance to bring some economic life to some blighted inner city communities.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been able to do that without WaterStone as the vehicle that allowed me to fund that. I mean, I could have funded it from my own pocket directly, but I could have funded half as much work without the tax benefit of being able to use WaterStone as the vehicle.
Yeah, I would say WaterStone has been very helpful for me lately. You guys definitely said, how can we do it versus no, and some creative ideas I've had. One of those we're going to talk about in the next podcast, in the part 3 of this series. But it's been really great. This isn't per se a commercial for WaterStone, although it could be. But it's more, I would highly recommend WaterStone. But as much as anything, I just want to make sure that our listeners understand that giving can be creative. I don't think many people are thinking about their business in terms of, I could give 10% of my business away tomorrow, still own 90%, control it, run it the way I run it, get a tax benefit, and then start funding outside ministries or whatever.
What I've done generally is I buy the shares back from the foundation after I've donated them, so that the foundation has the cash.
Oh.
And I still have 100% ownership of the business after we're done.
Oh, so you donate it and then you buy it back?
Yeah. So the company redeems the stock.
Oh, wow.
And that gives the cash to the be used for ministry purposes, and leaves me with 100% control of my own business. So that's the more normal.
So if you don't, okay, so let's look at it this way. We got off to the races here. Let's go backwards a little bit. Can you identify some appreciated assets that people could give? So we've talked about real estate. Go ahead, I'll let you.
Yeah, the most common ones are real estate, whether it's rental houses or commercial buildings or undeveloped land. Any sort of real estate is eligible. It can be stocks and bonds.
That's the easiest, right?
That's the most common gifting, is you happen to be smart enough to get into Apple at the ground floor, or NVIDIA, or one of the other success stories of our generation.
Yeah.
So that can be done. We have people who give oil and gas interests. We've received many oil and gas royalty interests and working interests, both. We've created some creative ways of receiving partial interests in, a family-run business. I think, to the best of my knowledge, we're the only foundation that's come up with a way of cutting the tax cost of holding an operating business in half from what is normally considered. So we've come up with some good solutions that allow people. Early in my career, I was approached by a man who wanted to give 100% of the income from his business to ministry. He was taking a salary, but everything else was to go to ministry. And the law said you can only deduct 50%. And so what I ended up doing was I got him to give the customer list from his company to us and then license it back to him for a royalty payment. And the royalty payment was deductible. And that took him up to 100% deductibility.
Yeah.
And everything, worked out really, really well. But again, the issue is to listen carefully to what's on people's hearts and then find a way of fulfilling it within the boundaries of good legal and ethical standards.
What about wills and estates?
We have an enormous amount. At this point, I think, to the best of our knowledge, there are tens of billions of dollars of wills and trust bequests that are directed toward us.
So if I was 80 years old, I'm thinking end of life.
Right.
And I have a $10 million estate. I could say at death,
or if you're 45 years old and know that there is such a thing as Mack truck heaven, you could get run over tomorrow.
Yes.
And so you want to make some provision. We can be the right recipient. It's particularly attractive for estate giving because if you're talking about a gift that's going to be done over, it might be 20 years from now, might be 40 years from now, your ideas about what are the appropriate recipients will change.
Yeah.
If you put it in your will, you're going to have to keep going to the lawyer and getting the will revised, codicils or whatever, done regularly. If you put WaterStone as the beneficiary, all you do is post a letter with us saying, my current desires are that the money would be divided to these 5 charities. And if you change your mind tomorrow, you just write us a letter and change the thing. So it makes it much simpler, much more streamlined to manage a long-term giving program like that.
Love it.
We do a lot of business, and we're one of the few foundations that does, but in charitable trusts, there's something called a charitable remainder trust, where you give an asset to the trust. When you die, the principal will go to charity. During your lifetime, you take an income out of it, and you get a large income tax deduction currently. And when the asset's sold, you pay no capital gains tax because the principal is going to charity. And so you can save enormous amounts of tax by doing that. I actually have viewed that as my primary retirement income vehicle, where I can take assets and liquidate them within that trust, avoid capital gains tax, create a very large income tax benefit, and have an income for life. They're irrevocable trusts, so you can't change them once you've established it, but they create this pool of money that you can't be sued and lose.
Yeah.
It's protected from creditors.
Yeah.
So it really is a safe place to accumulate passive income for days when you're no longer working.
And we may have to have a conversation about that.
Yeah.
Off topic or off podcast. Yeah. So, it's just, I'm fascinated by how creative you guys within the law. I mean, I don't want to give the wrong impression here. You guys are very law abiding and follow the tax code, but nearly everybody I talked to, there was more no's than yeses. And there was more, the first conversation was hurdles. What I loved about talking with you was I felt like you and your team were excited to figure out how to find the solution. And then it was like, okay, once we know where we want to go, now let's look at all the hurdles versus look at the hurdles first. Hey guys, we're going to jump right back into this podcast episode, but first we wanted to take a moment to highlight Ordinary Movement. Because of Ordinary Movement's investment in this podcast, we're able to bring you this great content. Ordinary Movement is a disciple-making movement that happens through ordinary men and ordinary women who take the initiative and the high challenge, high grace invitation to be disciples who make disciples. Ordinary Movement provides a proven framework, a disciple-making process with a ton of resources that takes all the guesswork out of disciple-making and building community. Ordinary Movement is free and exists to help people just like you walk out discipleship in your own life. OM also helps local churches create a disciple-making movement in and through their church community. This process is simple, reproducible, and creates multiplication. OM was designed by ordinary people for ordinary people. That's people just like you. So to get started with this free resource and the platform of Ordinary Movement, please visit ordinarymovement.com. Once again, ordinarymovement.com to learn more. All right, back to the show.
Jeremy, there's kind of a funny story about the start of this whole process, but when we were doing this in the 1970s at inception, we were having really major success and impact with what we're doing. And the IRS sued us. And the basic cause of their suit was they're too good at what they do. They're reducing tax revenue. Therefore, they shouldn't exist. And it went all the way to the U.S. tax court. And we won the case in U.S. tax court. And the tax court set the boundaries for proper use of a donor advised fund. And so we are the landmark case, which established what's permissible and what isn't permissible.
Wow.
But because we'd been really careful at setting up appropriate internal boundaries, basically the judges at the U.S. tax court endorsed our approach and said, yeah, this is totally within the intent of the law, and these guys are doing it right. Anybody who wants to be safe needs to follow what they're doing.
Yeah, love that.
So,
was it you that gave me the example? Or was maybe somebody from your team? I don't want to confuse conversations, but I just want to give some creative thoughts here that people could maybe think through. That if I owned a second home, and I don't, but if I did, I could donate that second home to the DAF, Donor Advised Fund, DAF. I could then continue to use that second home. I would just have to pay rent, market rate rent when I used it.
Yes.
But I would receive. So imagine you own a second home in Nags Head on the beach, and it's a $4 million home. You can donate a $4 million asset, get in a 40% tax bracket. Well, it would probably appreciate it. I don't know. Let's just say 30%. Get a $1.2 million tax write-off in that year. So you benefit from it in that year. And then every time you use it, you just pay market rent. And you're like, why would I pay rent for something that I own? Well, you don't own it anymore. You donated it. But your benefit from taxes, you probably will never pay enough rent in your lifetime to catch up with that benefit. So it's a great way.
If you're renting, you use it 4 weeks a year and you rent it 30 weeks a year, the 30 weeks of rent is tax-free. And so it funds your charitable giving instead of having to come out of pocket for cash.
So the rent income comes back to the donor advised fund. Right. You then advise the fund where you want to give it.
If you paid rent for your 4 weeks of usage of it, that can be used to satisfy your charitable giving.
Yeah.
So in a certain sense, it really doesn't, you're getting double duty out of the money.
Yeah. So there's just so many creative ways that as believers, we can utilize a donor advised fund through WaterStone or many other organizations to be smarter in our charitable giving. And you're smart about it and you give the tax money to somebody else, or you're not smart about it and you give the tax money to the IRS.
Exactly.
And so it's not about like avoiding taxes or being shady. It's about who are you going to pay your taxes to, in my opinion.
My dad and I had a formal consulting practice for 11 years. We saw about $4 billion go to kingdom causes from what we're doing.
Wow.
And we computed 95 cents on the dollar came from tax savings.
Wow.
So again, tax-wise giving can be spectacularly effective.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited about it. I'm on that journey.
Yeah.
And, I think it's a game changer. I just wanted to have this podcast to open the eyes.
One other thing I'd emphasize is that donor advised funds are not only for the wealthy. I think that very ordinary people can make good use of them.
For sure.
The stockpiling of being able to accumulate money when you get a year-end bonus, give a portion of it to your donor advised fund, and have the liberty of waiting months to decide who the right recipient is for it. The ability to, as you accumulate our IRA money, there are tax advantages to giving portions of your IRA to a donor advised fund. It just allows you to have a lot of flexibility about how you manage this side of your life. And frankly, maybe I shouldn't say this, but the privacy and anonymity of it is a huge benefit.
Yeah.
There was a day when my mailbox was filled constantly with donation appeals, and it was really pretty frustrating. I didn't have the time to look at all the mail that was turning up.
Yeah.
Since most of my giving goes through my donor advised fund at this point, I don't get all the junk mail. And if I want to have a direct contact with the organization, I can, but they don't have to be on my doorstep constantly seeking additional donations.
Yeah.
It really simplified my life significantly to start handling my money through that mechanism rather than directly.
What is the minimum amount to open? I know you're not in the day-to-day anymore.
Yeah,
you're the founder of
right,
WaterStone.
I'm chairman of the board, but I don't get into the detail. I believe that we'll open an account with $1,000.
Oh, wow, that little.
The economic, probably it's more like $5,000 to $10,000 before it becomes economic.
Yeah,
but you can get started for $1,000.
Yeah, I think it's a great vehicle. Would now be an appropriate time? Can you talk about impact loans? Is that impact giving? Is that what they call it? In a certain sense, this Norwegian soccer team was an example of impact investing. Can you explain how that works?
Yes, we can make a loan or an equity investment in a project that has both business implications and a potential charitable impact. So we've invested money in Christian movie studios. We've invested money in medical clinics in Ghana, a variety of things like that. So, you think of the donor advised funds, well, I've got to give the money to a qualified charity. That's not, in fact, true. If there's something that could potentially be beneficial to the kingdom of God that is a business investment, you can do that as an investment of your fund. And obviously there are some things that we wouldn't invest in that somebody wants to open abortion clinics, and we wouldn't use WaterStone funds for that.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of things that could be of huge benefit to a community that we could do through an investment that would be more beneficial than an outright donation.
So let me try to break that down so I understand it better. I have a piece of real estate. It's worth $500,000. I donate it. We then sell it in the DAF, donor advised fund. The cash goes to the DAF tax free. It's $500,000. I then say there's some cause that some business that I think is doing a great job of reaching men and women for Christ. I give them a $500,000 loan, or let's say a $200,000 loan.
Right.
Then, and let's just say it's 6% interest.
Right.
The interest comes back as income as an investment to the DAF. The loan is paid back over time.
Correct.
and that's not considered a charitable gift.
No,
it's considered
an investment.
It's an investment. So it's no different than if I sold that house and invested the money in the stock market.
Correct.
So my investment is now a loan to a business that could potentially not only receive interest back, but could have an equity stake too, or no?
Could, absolutely. We're doing that with our Norwegian soccer club. We'll have an equity stake in the soccer club, and it may be several years. In this instance, we're making an investment that is pretty long-term in its payback. And under normal, prudent investment purposes, you might not do it. It may be higher risk and lower return than you'd normally do. But because it contributes to our charitable mission, the soccer club allows us to disciple young professional athletes, and it potentially brings revenues that are going to fund a lot of youth development in the inner city Africa. So we made an investment that was probably lower yield and higher risk than you might normally do. But it has a double bottom line. It has a charitable bottom line and a financial bottom line. And so we're free to do that sort of impact investment, do a fair bit of it.
What if it was more of just hey, I can get a better return doing this than I can in the stock market? So let's say I have a small lending business. I lend to real estate, hard money loans. What if I said, hey, Foundation Lending is willing to pay me 13% for any cash that I invest into the business? That there's no charitable aspect to that.
No problem at all. Again, if it's a pure financial investment with no charitable byproduct, WaterStone would need to make sure that the transaction would pass scrutiny from an auditor or the IRS if they were to look at it.
So it probably couldn't be a loan to my own business. It would have to be somebody else's.
Right.
Yeah. So it would have to be your hard money lending company.
Right.
And you're paying my DAF money back.
But as long as in your example, if you are making 13% loans to a variety of other entities, and so we're getting it on the same terms as you're doing $10 million of other business.
Yeah.
There would be no problem about that. So we just have the standard is that there can't be any, the legal term is private inurement of benefit. It can't be seen as something that is lining your pocket unfairly in relation to the general public.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as long as it's on the same terms as the general public would pay, no problems.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I just wanted to bring that example up because for me, that's a real world. I can get my head around the creativity that can exist in these DAFs because you guys are about saying yes and not saying no.
It takes more work on our part to handle the non-conventional transactions.
Yeah,
but we see that as an important part of the service that we're providing. It's not just, from our point of view, the goal is not to make life simple for us. The goal is to try to achieve the dreams and intent of the donor.
Yeah.
And so there's just a different mindset in how we're approaching this.
Great. Well, I mean, we could do example after example. I really enjoy thinking through these processes. We'll kind of wrap it up here. I will say, the next podcast is going to be around some creative thoughts around how do we fund ordinary movement? Or if you're not interested in ordinary movement, maybe you could take this model and fund your own nonprofit through it. And so I'm excited to talk through what that would look like in this next podcast. But let's wrap this one here. It's a fascinating conversation. I love being creative in the kingdom and using our entrepreneurial skills in our giving. So guys, check out WaterStone Foundation. We'll put the link below in the
waterstone.org.
Waterstone.org. They're in Colorado Springs, but they can work nationally. And great organization. And reach out. I'd love to answer any questions you may have. I've recently dealt with this and gone through the process myself. So hopefully this encourages you and inspires you to think differently about your giving. And maybe even, I know for me, it inspires me to want to give more because now I can be creative in it. So that was kind of the goal.
Giving for me is great fun. It's one of the great pleasures in life. But part of the reason that's true is that I'm able to use my best skills in doing the giving. It's not just a passive sitting down at my desk and writing a check.
That's right.
It's me thinking, what would be the highest and best use of this money? How can I multiply things for the kingdom through my contacts and my business experience and other things? And that's why WaterStone has been such a big part of my adult life, because it's unleashed me to really have fun in the process of giving and creating and seeing things accomplished that wouldn't be accomplished through any other means.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing it, because you're doing the same for me. So guys, hope you're inspired by that. Check it out, waterstone.org, and check out the next podcast. It's going to be fun to talk through this project we have coming up. Thanks so much. Hey, thank you so much for checking out the show today. I want to invite you to check out this next episode right here, where we're going to be going even further into discussion on what it means to be a disciple who makes disciples. Also, be sure to subscribe to our channel right now if you want to continue the journey of learning what it means to be a disciple, how we make disciples, what is discipleship, and just different ways that people are engaging and living as mission-minded believers. Finally, again, if you're wanting to go to the next level in disciple making and you're looking for support, resources, a framework, a discipleship process, and even training and coaching on how to be disciples who make disciples, check out ordinarymovement.com. Once again, ordinarymovement.com, where we have an entire process to help you create a disciple-making movement in your community and or through your church. Thanks so much.